in the very middle of the North Pacific Gyre, and when we look out at sea, it looks like a beautiful blue ocean. It's only when we put this trawl through the water with a very fine mesh net do we realise that actually most of what we're looking at right now is covered in these tiny fragments.
We're not quite in the middle of the Pacific anymore. We're about 3 days from Vancouver. We've been travelling through the Great Pacific Garbage Patch for about 10 days now, but we're out of it, and we're just preparing for a last storm before we make our way back to land.
Oh dear, so before we get onto the patch itself, you say last storm. What have the conditions been like since you've been out there?
We've had actually quite a bit more weather than we had originally anticipated, which has made sampling slightly challenging. On some days we've been living life on a 45 degree angle for quite a few days, which has been quite interesting. But we've had a fair number of good days, so we've been able to collect some good samples.
We've been sailing through the North Pacific Gyre for 7 days, and we can't believe what we've seen.
Plastic bottles, toothbrushes,
Plastic bags,
buckets and barrels,
a cigarette lighter,
fishing crates.
It's the sheer amount of pieces.
It's literally a plastic soup. Large plastic lids for containers.
A washing basket.
Half a toilet seat. And we saw a chair with all 4 legs.
All these items once belonged to someone, and they definitely don't belong in the ocean.
I've been following your blog. It must have been so shocking to be so far away from land and scoop up some of the sea and find the amount of plastic you did. Just tell us what you have been collecting.
Yeah, it's been really crazy. So maybe about 5 days in from leaving Hawaii, we started seeing a lot of debris in the water, and that sort of just increased in frequency. And then as soon as the weather allowed us to put our trawls in the water, we started trawling, and we've been finding lots and lots of microplastics in the samples. Some samples have had over 500 pieces of microplastic in them, which has been really shocking when you consider it's so remote out here. It's really quite mind-boggling.
So how is it been sort of disheartening then, or is it sort of motivated you to want to do more?
I think at first it was quite shocking, but I definitely feel motivated to come back and look at solutions and spread the message, and use what we've seen out here as a motivational tool to kind of keep going with it and spread the message to more people, because I think that's all you can really do with it.
You've been sort of leading some of the science behind what you've been doing out there. So just explain what you have been doing with regards to science. Well, what are you sort of hoping to achieve while you're out there?
Yeah, so I've been on a team of 2 scientists. I'm with a lovely lady called Emily Duncan, who's a turtle expert. She looks at plastics and turtles, and we've been collecting data on behalf of various scientists in different global institutions. So we've been quantifying the amount of plastic we've been finding. We've also been collecting samples of plastic to look at what marine life is living on them, and then we've been collecting data to look at pollutants in the plastic and in the water, and looking at air samples as well.
And with what you've been finding, do you think that we can actually do enough really, I suppose, to try and turn round the damage that we've done?
When you're looking at the sizes of the microplastics we're seeing, we're kind of picking out plastics under a microscope. They're so small, and there's so many of them out here that the idea of cleaning it up, I don't know how that would really work, because there's just so much out here. But I definitely think we can do things on land, and the solutions really start on land. We kind of have to turn off the tap before we even think about cleaning up what we've already done. We've got to look at those sort of solutions first, I think. So it needs to be the motivation for that, really.
So obviously, as you mentioned, you are now sort of heading back towards land, I guess, and that means that the next step will be happening. So what is that next step? What do you do now?
Yeah, so we have been working, as well as collecting samples, we've been doing workshops and kind of pooling ideas and solutions, from small kind of immediate action to where government and industries need to go in the future to make things, make recycling easier and more transparent and things like that. So we're going to go with our ideas and our motivation and kind of work together and work with local communities, and like I have been with the Isle of Man government, and sort of start working on potential solutions from there.
And it is great you mentioned the Isle of Man government, that just in the news yesterday and today they are talking about banning single-use plastics all across government, and I'm sure in part that's to do with the likes of yourself sort of campaigning. So that is fantastic news, isn't it?
Yeah, that's actually the work I was doing with the Isle of Man government before I left. I was part of that programme, so it's amazing that it's finally going through, and I know we have some ideas to sort of bring that out into more sort of island industry and things like that. So it'll be really interesting to see how the next sort of 6 months go.
Absolutely. And how has it been being on the boat with all of those wondrous women? Because of course it is an all-female crew, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. It's been really the most incredible experience. There's so many amazing women from many different backgrounds that we've just gelled so well, and it's made the trip go so quickly. I literally feel like I've clicked my fingers and it's nearly over. It's gone too quickly. So we've really made a really strong team that can work in our different fields and, hopefully work together to come up with some really innovative ideas and solutions for the problem. So you can find more updates on the expedition website, Instagram and Facebook page, and we've got some really great content that will be coming out in the next few days. So make sure you kind of keep a lookout for that.
And when might you be back on the tiny isle?
I will be back on the 20th, I think, if I've got my dates right.
Fantastic. We will make sure there is some sort of welcome party with absolutely no plastic inside for that. Rowan, it is brilliant what you're doing. Thank you so much for taking the time. You go concentrate on trying to stay upright, okay?
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Once we work out what these plastics are, we can better understand where they're coming from and how to stop them getting into the ocean.